Hi, my name is Seraphis Singh with the Freedom Education Standard. Today we're going to go over a brief description of what the standard is and the learning theories and educational technologies that went into designing it. Education is very different now than it was in the first half of the 21st century. In the first few decades of the 21st century, it became increasingly clear that the educational systems around the world were not meeting the needs of students. Schools started to try many different things to fix the educational systems. As you know, they all failed. The changes they tried could not meet the needs of students because the system itself was too rigorous and could not make the necessary changes students needed. As new alternative methods of learning appeared on the market, any school, college, or university that could not provide the value that people came to expect began to disappear. As many of the programs in colleges and universities were banking on the fact that students would take their classes because they needed the degrees for jobs, it was long feared that colleges and universities would die if they could not provide the worth to potential students. But what nobody was thinking about is that secondary schools and then primary schools would follow. In the 2030s, groups all over the world began to fight to take control of the curriculum away from government. They wanted to be able to choose the educational standards their kids would follow and not be limited by the geographical location in which they lived. This mixed with the school voucher program allowed for some pretty interesting things to happen. Schools in the U.S. started to take on educational standards from different parts of the world. Some worked, some didn't. If a parent didn't like the standard, they would just simply change the kid's school. We believe that governments should be responsible to make sure that every child has an education and the means to pay for it. However, governments should not be in charge of what that education is. When I heard J.P. Phillips from J.P. University say this for the first time, I knew that it was the embodiment of what we were trying to accomplish with our educational standards. Life is not equal. You have to make it equal. Life is not fair. You have to make it fair. Your life, your success, your happiness, yours and yours alone to create. That is what I want to unlock for you. 3 years ago, in 2047, we started the Freedom Education Standard. It was the first educational standard not run by the government in the U.S. Create yourself and your life. Education that is designed to help people create themselves. That is our motto. There are 3 learning theories that inspired the Freedom Education Standard. Those are motivation, spiral dynamics, and Gang's theory of instruction. Motivation is the cornerstone of our education standard. Whether it be the student's motivation to learn or the teacher's motivation to teach, it is the most important factor in any educational experience. Our goal is to take individuals from external motivational factors towards internal motivational factors. Each person that is part of our educational standard is required to create a vision for their lives, themselves, and the community around them. This vision should be the motivating factor for everything in their educational experience. If their vision does not motivate them, it is not the right vision for them, and they must readjust, redefine until they find the one that motivates them. We teach both students and teachers how external motivating factors can be devastating to people's ability to reach their vision, as external motivating factors are often used to control and manipulate people into doing certain tasks. With this in mind, all members of our educational system go through training on how to know which external motivating factors will help them reach their visions and which will not. External motivational factors should only be used to help people find their vision and keep them on track in reaching their vision. Spiral dynamics. We have adopted principles from Don Beck's Spiral Dynamics into a rubric to show where students are in their learning of different skills and knowledge areas. Spiral dynamics is a model of evolution of consciousness. Its benefits are twofold in explaining the evolution of individual and cultural consciousness. That's all you need to know at this point in time. I will make more videos explaining how spiral dynamics and how we use it in our educational system in the next few weeks. Spiral dynamics turned out to be an amazing way to make sure learners were exposed to the right learning experience at the right time. When a learner is exposed to a new skill or knowledge area, they start off in beige, basic survival. They know nothing about the subject area or skill. Learners move up the spiral as they learn more about the subject area or skill. The type of education and method of instruction changes with each level. The levels are fluid and the learner can stay at a level as long as they need to. Remember, I am going to go through a whole series on spiral dynamics and how it relates to our educational system. So subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. Gang's theory of instruction. There's more than just consciousness levels to think about when designing a class. You must also think about what type of learning you are trying to teach. That is where Gang's theory of instruction comes into play. In Gang's theory of instructions, there are 5 major categories of learning. They help you to know the learning techniques that are best for the specific material in which you are teaching. The 5 major categories of learning are verbal information, intellectual skills, cognitive strategies, attitude, and motor skills. In the Freedom of Educational Standard, we do a lot of analytical research to understand which learning theories and learning techniques work best for individuals at different consciousness levels who are working on different categories of learning. This is what the matrix looks like that we are putting together. This matrix helps teachers and course designers choose the learning techniques that are appropriate for the consciousness level and type of learning that they are teaching. The Freedom Education Standard is built upon many technologies. Now I'd like to take the time to tell you about some of those educational technologies that make our educational system possible. The technologies I'm going to talk about today were all available in the first half of the 21st century. However, it took time for the amount of content to build up. Our educational standard would not have been possible in 2020 because the technologies were simply not ready yet. But things were changing as the amount of content was growing on an exponential curve through the first half of the 21st century. In 2020, there were some programs that could be taken by massive online courses and some that used open educational resource books. However, the content was limited. It was only available for select programs, most of which were in technology. As you know, in 2050, things are different. We've had 30 years worth of content built up since 2020. Game-based learning, e-learning, massive online courses, and open educational resources. This means that learners have more choice. Teachers can offer classes more specific to the needs of the learners. This is something that has never before been possible in the history of humankind, and we're proud to be the first to have an educational standard that takes advantage of it. The Freedom of Educational Standard is an experiment in choice and freedom. We will get things wrong. We will get things right. and we will get things somewhere in between. We will not stop fighting for the freedom of the learners, because that is the freedom for all of us to create ourselves and create our lives and create the world around us. This is the ultimate freedom. Thank you.